Hi, everyone, and welcome to the MSBA Student Panel Webinar. Thank you all so much for joining us today. I know it's evening for some of you, and it's bright and early in the morning for others, depending on where you're joining us. So I just want to thank everyone for taking time out of their schedules from all over the world to join us tonight. And also welcome, I know we do have a couple of admitted students in the crowd tonight, so welcome to you as well. I'm Stephanie Brown, Assistant Director of Admissions for the MSBA program here at the University of Notre Dame's Mendoza College of Business. I will sort of be your moderator this evening. Many of you have joined me for other webinars, and you've heard a lot from me, but you haven't yet heard from our current students. And I'm joined by 7 of our fantastic MSBA students this evening. And so I'm going to just have a casual Q&A format tonight. So instead of hearing me talk, I'm going to throw this webinar out to all of you to submit your questions, and we will have our current students answer those questions live this evening. A few housekeeping items before we go ahead and get started. I do want to remind everyone to keep their microphones muted so that we don't get any of that background noise or feedback while we're presenting tonight. Also, please be sure to submit your questions in the Q&A functionality. We won't be monitoring the chat feature, so please enter any questions. You can start right now. I'm hoping that all of you have some great questions for us tonight, but go ahead and start entering those questions in the Q&A function. And we'll be sure to get started on those and continue to enter questions throughout the webinar this evening. And then one last item, I will be here to answer any very basic program or admissions questions, but I would prefer that we keep our questions tonight about the student experience. So please make sure you're asking our students here questions about being Notre Dame students, about living in South Bend, about the program itself, the courses that they're taking, the projects that they're working on, and so on. So I think as long as it's directed towards the student experience for MSBA, no question is off the table tonight. So with that, I would love to go ahead and get started and throw it over to the students. So I'm going to have everyone go around and introduce themselves. So if all of you could give your names, where you're from, what undergrad institution you went to, and your major, and why you decided to pursue an MSBA. Okay, so Brett, you want to get us started?
Hi, everyone. My name is Brett Kornfeld. I went to Indiana University undergrad. I was a business management major and a marketing minor. And why I chose to pursue an MSBA is because I'm really interested in kind of pursuing sports analytics moving forward. And a lot of what the program could offer in terms of programming and coding experience and kind of new statistical knowledge is really going to be beneficial moving forward in my hopeful eventual career.
Hey guys, my name is Dong. I'm from Jiangsu, China. I did my undergrad at Suzhou University in China, and I was majored in logistic management. The reason why I chose to pursue an MSBA was because in my junior year, I took a Python programming course. It was super fun, so I decided to take a step further. So I came to Notre Dame. That's about me.
Hey guys, my name is Wei Yi. I'm also from China. I did my undergrad actually here at Notre Dame. I was an accounting major back in school. Very glad to be back. So double soon to be. So really I became very interested in data analytics in my previous job experience. So I remember 2 weeks in my first job, the firm started to pull us into various training sessions. We started to learn Python and R and SQL and Tableau. And that's when I realized, the entire world of business is capitalizing on the power of technology and advanced analytics to change the way they do business and deliver services to their clients. So that's why I chose the MSBA program.
Hi, I'm Gabby. I'm from the Philippines. I got my undergrad degree from the University of the Philippines, and I got a degree in business administration and marketing. The reason why I wanted to pursue an MSBA was ever since I was a kid, I was really into math and all of that kind of stuff. But when I got to university, I didn't have a lot of technical experience, especially in the field of business, marketing, and stuff like that. It was all mostly on the subjective side. So I wanted to get a background in technology and other technical aspects of business before I would start my career.
All right, hey guys, I'm Joe. Originally from the Chicago area in Illinois. I actually did my undergrad here at Notre Dame as well. Graduated in 2016, worked in finance for about 3 years. And in my previous job, some of the projects that I really enjoyed the most were those that were the most data intensive, meaning you get these data sets and basically your job is to, hey, tell me what it means. And so that's kind of what made me want to come back to get my master's. And yeah.
Hi, my name is Chen. I also come from China, and from Nankai University, I got dual degree of finance and English, and I choose MSBA because I love coding, but I do not want to coding for a whole day. Yeah.
Hi, everybody. My name is Emma. I'm originally from Indianapolis, and I did my undergrad at IUPUI. I majored in accounting. So the reason I decided to pursue an MSBA was I had a lot of experience with statistics and tutoring statistics, and I really wanted to dive deep more into how statistics could be used in data and how they could kind of help a business drive their objectives.
All right, thanks everyone. So let's go ahead and dive into questions. Make sure that if you have questions for our current students, that's what tonight is about. So make sure you start submitting questions to the Q&A function of Zoom. So we'd love to hear from you and what you're curious about. So go ahead and start submitting questions and we'll dive right in to answer them. So first question on the list, what separated the Notre Dame's MSBA program from other MSBA programs out there?
I think for me personally, the Notre Dame MSBA had a really unique course list, and so they have a lot more data intensive courses for me, which is really what I was looking for.
Go on. Yeah, for me specifically, I came into the program with no actual coding experience beforehand, and just kind of the way that the program was laid out in terms of when I interviewed and when I was doing research on the program was just that it was going to be intensive, but also at the same time, it was going to be kind of conducive to someone who was learning this stuff for the very first time. And so I just felt comfortable with the idea that kind of the academics were going to be rigorous and up to the standards of kind of wanting to pursue my career, while at the same time, I wasn't going to be overwhelmed and feel behind from the moment I got on campus.
Yeah, the reason why I chose Notre Dame, and because at the time I have some other very great options. So I talked to one of my professors who graduated from UCLA, and he talked to me that even though other programs, they are kind of like comparable with Notre Dame, but Notre Dame, the brand of Notre Dame can definitely carry you far. So I love Notre Dame because the brand, the people, the community. So I came here.
Yeah, so to me, first of all, I have this personal connection with Notre Dame, so I just love the school. But one important factor why I chose to come back to Notre Dame was because of the balance in the coursework that Notre Dame offers. So you get training in both fields, business and data analytics, so you don't just become a strong coder, you also develop your business acumen throughout the process. So that's that perfect combination of both business classes and data analytic classes. That's really helpful.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I couldn't really tell you what other programs are like, but then what's good about the MSBA program here at Notre Dame is that some of the courses that we're taking, and actually it was one of the biggest reasons why I actually chose Notre Dame, was it was in line with what I had for my future career, and a lot of it was a mix of basic knowledge and a lot of advanced topics in terms of what I first saw myself doing in terms of my career as possibly a business analyst in the future. So I think the coursework that we had wasn't as broad as, say, a normal business degree, but also it wasn't so complicated that people who didn't have a lot of business analytics experience couldn't be successful going through this program.
Yeah, and then for me, this just kind of goes back to my experience having an undergrad major in Mendoza as well. Just kind of knowing that I'll be getting a great education with great professors and faculty that really do care about the students that come through the programs. So when I got in, it was really a no-brainer for me.
I think the most attractive thing for me is that the class size is very small and it has only 1 year, so we can go to work as soon as we can. And also the tuition fee is not that expensive.
Okay, so next question up there. What's the most interesting MSBA course you've enjoyed so far? I like the phrasing of that.
I can take this one.
Yeah, go ahead, Brett.
So from my perspective, during our first mod, we took Introduction to Data Analytics, which for me was my favorite class that I've taken so far, just because the entire kind of subject matter from an academic standpoint was new to me. I was kind of familiar with analytics, especially kind of in the sports landscape, but I had never really gotten the chance to actually apply that and kind of do my own work. It was a lot more just like reading and understanding other people's work. And so getting kind of like a course where it's structured and you're learning all of these different strategies for kind of doing statistical analysis, especially in R, but then also kind of having the freedom to do projects that are related to what you're interested in. And, for me, that meant doing projects in basketball or doing projects that were kind of like similarly related to like pop culture. That to me was incredibly appealing because I can now take those projects and send them to the types of companies that I want to work for moving forward, and was also able to kind of build on those projects as I progressed through the second mod and now into our third module.
Excellent. Anyone else want to weigh in?
I think for me, my favorite class has been data management so far, just because I personally didn't have a ton of coding experience coming into this program. So this class was a really awesome way to kind of dip your toes into that and learn a little bit more about R and SQL. And so that was a really good class for me. And plus the class was just fun in general. There were a lot of labs that you were kind of all working in a collaborative environment and talking to each other and, figuring out together how this stuff works. And so that was really cool for me.
Yeah, I think as for me, I like the Python for data analytics. As I mentioned, I took Python in my undergrad, but Notre Dame's Python course is kind of different. In my undergrad, I'm more focused on the algorithm side, but at Notre Dame, because it's an analytics program, so they teach you how to use Python's various libraries such as NumPy, Pandas, and they also teach you how to web scrape the data from the website, and they teach you how to do machine learning using Python. So I think that's pretty cool. And we also have like a lot of hands-on assignments, labs, and it was pretty challenging, but I'm happy I survived.
All right, so let's move on to the next question. So I know this one's a little bit tricky. So someone's asking about the employment rate so far, especially for international students. So I will remind our viewers that we're actually in the very first year of this full-time residential MSBA program. So we don't have graduates for the program yet, but I do know that we have some very successful students so far in terms of the job search, and we're just halfway through the program. So I will let the students, I know that we have at least one in the crowd with a job in hand, but I know that they all know each other very well and can report a little bit more on what other peers of theirs have some jobs waiting. So I'll go ahead. Wei, do you want to start off?
Yeah, absolutely. So like I said, the reason I chose to come back to Notre Dame, one of the things that people love about Notre Dame was the Notre Dame Alumni Network. That's, the biggest thing about Notre Dame is you make connections here, you build friendship, you meet people, appreciate talents here, and then you go out to work and you continue to build that relationship. That's the legacy that Notre Dame offers to students like us. So I landed both my jobs from undergrad and my jobs that I'm going to, my master, in a master's program through Alumni Network. So I went through campus recruiting. I also personally networked with Notre Dame alumni, and they're all very, very helpful. So I can just personally speak about my the job that I'll be doing after graduation. So I'll be returning to my previous employer, actually, but I switched my team and I switched my office location. And I came across with this job through alumnus, and he introduced this exciting team with me, and then he offered to refer me to this job position. And I went through the interview process. It was also a very formal interview process, but throughout the process, he helped me learn more about a team. He offered me great resources to connect with, and he also offered to help me revise my resume and all that stuff. So it's really, I think once you come to Notre Dame, you need to learn how to leverage your connections here, and you need to be very proactive reaching out to your alumni network. Yeah, I also know other people in our programs. I know quite a few people landed their jobs with big consulting firms, big four accounting firms. Some people really are going to utilize your technical skills learned here to their future jobs. I know some people are going to do technology consulting, some people are going to do risk advisory. Personally, for me, I'm going to do analytics consulting. So that's all just the cool things going on with our students.
Yeah, as an international student here, I know it is pretty hard to find a job here for an international student. So I personally went to all of the career fairs at Notre Dame, and I got some on-campus interview opportunities. So today I actually just done with my on-campus interview with a marketing service company in New York. So it went through pretty well, and a lot of my classmates who are also international students, they also got several interview opportunities these few days. So I know some of them. I know one of my friend who is from China. So he has already have 7 interviews on hand right now. So I think the number is going to grow very quickly.
Yeah, I think we've also had a lot of people kind of realize that the program that we're in does recruit heavily in the spring. And we've learned that from a variety of resources. We've had career advisors tell us that and that kind of thing as well. So we are, obviously people are starting to get jobs, but the majority of the recruiting is done more in the spring for our program.
All right, so I'm going to move on to the next question. So what is the student-teacher interaction like here at Mendoza?
I can take the first part.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is actually my favorite part of kind of the beginning of the program so far. In terms of just access to kind of like world-class faculty, I would say that the strongest part so far of the program for me has been being able to kind of pick the brains of my professors. They're incredibly easy to kind of get a hold of and accommodating in terms of what like you don't understand or you want to learn deeper on. But maybe kind of even more than that is just taking what you're learning in class and working on outside projects is a big part of our program. And a lot of the faculty and the professors are stressing that to us and kind of taking what you're learning and evolving it into your own life. And the ability to kind of bounce those ideas and even like get some help on certain projects that you're working with those professors and with that faculty has been just immensely helpful and just like very, very awesome in terms of the learning experience and kind of accelerating your curve in terms of where you want to be by the time this program ends versus where you come in from.
Yeah, I definitely think that the professors they are fantastic professors inside the classroom, but they are also fantastic professors outside the classroom. Anytime, like you can just walk into their office hours. Sometimes the doors are just open. You can just walk in and talk to them, and they genuinely really do care about their students. And so that's been something that's been really cool to kind of see and to kind of develop those relationships outside of the classroom as well.
Yeah, and I also know like some of my professors, they offer research assistant positions and some out of classroom projects that they offer to the MSBA students. So some of my friends from the MSBA class, they are working for different professors at the Department of ITAL. And some of my classmates, they are also working on a variety of projects, such as like marketing analytics or sports analytics for different professors. So I think that's also very cool.
And because we're a relatively new program, I think all the faculty members, the professors, the directors, they're all very open to, hearing our feedback, and they're willing to take action once, we provide very useful feedback. So that's a really good thing about being a new program and being the pioneers.
All right. Before we go on to the next question, I just want to apologize to our audience. Our camera is being weird. If you guys are seeing us in interesting neon colors right now, well,
Not by choice.
we're just making life interesting over here at Mendoza College of Business. And I apologize, but I did not click anything. So just bear with us. Thank you so much. Oh, and we just keep flipping back and forth here to color. All right, well, let's move on to the next question. It's a very similar question in regards to the career preparation. So does anyone just kind of want to dive in and talk more about Lindsay and the work that she does with all of you to help you prepare?
Yeah, so I talk to Lindsay a lot. Lindsay is our MSBA coach. So I basically went to talk to Lindsay like once a week. So she's really nice. She helps you to like refine your resume, help you to develop your personal pitch when you are talking to the recruiters. And she's also very dedicated. So I remember there are a lot of times she sent us on career updates around midnight, like 11 p.m. or 12 in the midnight. That was like, I was super impressed by her hardworking. And I know there is another lady just joined the career service center who is focused on serving the MSBA and MSA and MS management students here. So that lady is pretty dedicated as well. So I remember last night's career fair, she documented a lot of like learnings and notes from the recruiters that she talked to and then shared with us. So I think she's also being a very good helper in our job search process.
Yeah, just to add to that, so for our program, I think we're required to meet with her at least once throughout the year. And she's really helpful because she's like the main contact between basically us and a lot of the employers. And so basically whichever industry that you want to work in, she'll work with you to determine what kind of firms are out there, what kind of roles are out there for you. So again, if you're really unsure, like, hey, I want to go into this industry, but I don't really know where else to look, she'll be that bridge for you and the employers.
And besides Lindsay, like she is totally for us. We can also reach for the career coach of like MSA or MBA or some other graduate program of the university. Yeah.
All right, next question. I'm excited for this question. It's from Ish, who is going to be joining the MSBA program next year. So thank you for joining us tonight, Ish. So he's asking, how do you blend your primary and your business analytics backgrounds for a prospective employer?
I mean, so for my undergrad, I was a management major at a different business school. And then I came here kind of to get the data and the statistical background and the programming background. And so the way at least I've been selling it, because I'm looking kind of toward the sports landscape, is just the idea that I can communicate like easily within teams, kind of learn the skills undergrad that is kind of interpersonal and like working within like a corporate structure and presenting and speaking publicly, and then combining that with kind of the skills and tools that I'm getting here that allow me to kind of add value in my actual work. That's kind of how I'm selling my package of my two educations to all of the teams and the agencies that I've kind of reached out to and connected with through networking, through the alumni network. And so, yeah, I think that kind of the way our program is set up, it's like a really beautiful complement to what you probably already have in some capacity from your undergrad. And it also kind of builds on those skills here because you're going to have to do a lot of those things as part of our program as well.
Yeah, I think for me personally, a lot of my background comes from tutoring and teaching. And so that's something that I kind of struggled initially to figure out how I was going to be able to blend the two of them together. And thankfully, I actually talked to Lindsay about it, and she was like, hey, you know, you can kind of play this off as like, okay, you're a tutor, you're a teacher, you're able to communicate effectively, you're able to deal with a diverse group of people, and you're able to kind of adapt as you go and find new ways to teach things. And so you kind of blend that with your data analytics, and you're really adaptive, and you're able to work in a very collaborative environment. And so one of the nice things that like Brett said was that your undergrad is you are able to somehow blend those two together and tailor it to what you specifically are interested in, what you kind of like, what your background comes from.
Okay, so next question, how flexible is the coursework? Is there flexibility to choose classes that students are more interested in or cross-enroll in other programs? Stone, you want to take this one first?
Yeah, so I have a real personal story. So at the very first beginning, because I'm pretty interested in learning more advanced analytics course, so I went to another department in the College of Science. So I tried to enroll in a course called Deep Learning, so which is more about the artificial neural networks. So I got a permission from the College of Science, and that is an undergrad course, and I successfully enrolled in the course. So the story wants to tell you guys that you have a lot of flexibility in choosing courses, like in the second semester, because all the courses in the first semester are mandatory, but in the second semester you have the choices to take the courses from Mendoza College of Business here and other programs, other courses outside of Mendoza. So that's one thing I think is pretty nice about Notre Dame. You have the flexibility to choose what you really want to learn.
Does someone want to weigh in on the electives a little bit?
I can weigh in. I mean, in the fourth module, we sign up for our third and fourth module of electives after we finish our second one. So that's kind of before our winter break. That one offered kind of the electives that were main selling points for me when I was entering the program. So it was kind of sports analytics was one of them. And then obviously like others that were in a similar realm. And so just in terms of kind of the electives that are part of the program and are advertised, that's kind of like the types of choices that you're going to see. And if those are the types of things that interest you, I would highly recommend them, because at least through so far how we've had the program, we've had pretty world-class faculty in all of those aspects. So I can't see why we wouldn't have them in the third and fourth module either.
You also have access to a lot of the MBA courses. So a lot of speaking or writing courses as well. You can kind of decide if you want to take those or if you want to take more MSBA centered courses, or like Stone said, kind of see if you can get permission to take something that's in an undergrad course as well.
Okay, so next question. What has impressed you most about this program so far?
I think the biggest thing, which is what we talked about earlier, was just the professors having so many world-class professors that are available to you at, honestly, like any time throughout the day. Like if you're confused about some homework that you're trying to finish, or you're trying to do a project that's outside the scope of the class, and you're trying to get some advice on how you should go about it, they're always enthusiastic, and they're always available for you to get some help. And this wasn't something that I experienced in my undergrad. So when I got here and I tried to maximize my resources, which is obviously one of the things that brought me here to Notre Dame, it really impressed me, and it gave me a lot of confidence to go about and challenge myself in terms of what I could do, and knowing that there was a good foundation of professors here to help us through it.
No, I think it's the alumni. Like I have networking with some alumni in the LinkedIn, and she replied me with many emails about how she sent my resume to the employees in her group. It's very admirable.
All right, so next question. What's been the most challenging thing you faced in the MSBA program?
So for me personally, I struggle with the coding part. I have had so much fun learning to code, but the initial kind of getting up and off of the ground for me was a little bit stressful. But again, like they've said, we have amazing professors who will help you when needed. And so just the ability to kind of talk through your problems, figure out what's going on, and just that kind of thing. So for me, it was a little bit of the initial coding, but again, it's something that I have learned that I really love to kind of sit down and dive through and figure out. So that's been really cool to see as well.
I think for me, similarly, some of the coding stuff, especially early on in R, was definitely tricky, specifically with data wrangling. So kind of the organization and kind of cleaning of data from messy data sets that we would get was tricky, just because it was the type of thing that I had definitely not seen before in really any element of my education. But kind of as Emma said before, I think that the flexibility of kind of the faculty and the professors, and the fact that they're all kind of able in all of these programming languages to help you. So you have so many resources and people to go to that can really like help explain to you some of the things that you're confused on, made it kind of overcoming a lot of those challenges that were early on in the learning curve a lot easier, and just a lot more manageable in terms of kind of stressing out about whether or not you might be falling behind, or might need to like kind of accelerate to catch up. You never really feel that way when you're in this program and you have all these resources at your disposal.
Okay, so another career-related question. What are some of the most common careers that MSBA students pursue? So I guess anyone who hasn't really talked about the career aspect, what are you looking to go into?
So for me personally, just because it is still a little like we are only halfway through the program. So for me, I'm still trying to figure out what exactly I'm looking for in a position, but I am actively searching. And so I am looking at job postings and those kinds of things and seeing, okay, is this what I want? Is this how I would want to spend my time and that kind of thing? So for me personally, I'm still kind of figuring out which direction I want to go in, but I do know that there are a lot of people who are, some people are really interested in the consulting part, whereas others are really interested in the analytics part and are fantastic programmers. So we do have quite a spectrum of like interests in that regards.
Personally, I want to go to the technology company, and Notre Dame has a California club, and they have like Excel, and they would update our resume to the employers in California. And like last week, I got an interview from the alumni.
All right. So Bo is asking, is it stressful to deal with the job search process when this is a one-year program? So you're also involved in all of your coursework and everything else. Who wants to kind of address that sort of mod 3-4?
I can take that. So the way the program is scheduled is that we take a lot of introductory coding courses in the first couple of mods, the first 2 mods in the first semester, basically where they provide us all the foundations that we need for the second semester. So think like Intro to Python, R, SQL, all the really coding intensive classes are in that first semester. And then the second semester is where we have more project-based classes. And then again, we take a little bit of a lighter course load along with that. So it gives us a lot more time to recruit as necessary to find the jobs that we need.
All right. So next question, Darren is asking, and we've kind of already covered this, but let's cover it again. So why should someone choose Mendoza over other universities offering a similar program that has existed for a while?
This one, lady.
Yeah, huge Notre Dame fan here. I mean, I'm a perfect example. I actually can share my personal story. So I went through 2 years of application process. The first year it was due to my work visa. I wasn't able to enroll in one of the programs that I got admitted into. But then the first year I applied to a bunch of schools. I did some research. I applied to schools that have existed for a long time with MSBA programs and schools that have just opened like Notre Dame. And the second year I came across with an advertisement that Notre Dame put out on LinkedIn or Facebook. And that was just, I gave some, thinking to which programs I wanted to go in. So the options that I was weighing between was UT Austin. Probably a lot of students are very familiar with UT Austin program, but they're a very well-known program for MSBA. They have existed for, I think, over 5 years. And the option is Notre Dame. And the reason I chose to come back to Notre Dame was the experience I had here as an undergrad. I really had a great time being a student here. I made a lot of great friends, and I have full confidence and faith in the resources the university was able to offer. And I made my decision based out of personal trust and this loyalty. Because once a domer, always a domer. Go Irish.
I think for me personally, the program itself is fantastic, and I thoroughly have enjoyed it a lot. But one of the big things that drew me here was the culture of the school as a whole. Just coming to this university and feeling immediately welcome on campus and having such an amazing time, getting to know people and getting to kind of just experience what it's like to be at Notre Dame. It's just quite an incredible feeling.
Right. And a piece of advice to all the international students. So you're coming to a new environment, a completely different environment than China or India or any other countries out there. So you don't just come here to study. You come here to get an immersive learning experience, a living experience. So you really want to study in an environment where you're going to feel home. So I think Notre Dame is the kind of school that's going to give you that feeling.
Thank you, guys. All right, so next question, and this is actually a great question. So how's it been, how's the recruiting experience been recruiting against undergraduates? Because we do have a business analytics undergrad major here at Notre Dame as well. So what's it been like sort of recruiting or going through the job search process alongside those students?
As for me, I think a lot of BA undergrad, they will decide to go for working for the consulting companies. But for a lot of like MSBA graduate student here, we are more into different kinds of industries like consulting, Big Four, technology, retail, this kind of industries. And I went to some career fairs, and I don't think any of the employer who came here to recruit Notre Dame student will differentiate like, oh, you're a graduate student, so I don't want to hire you. So I think we are basically the same. If you are good enough, if your resume stands out, if your elevator pitch is good, I think you're going to be fine.
Yeah, employers usually don't discriminate against your degree. And a lot of just job descriptions, you're going to say master's degrees preferred or minimum requirement bachelor's degree. So just read through the job descriptions carefully and really think about if you're the right candidate for this position. If they are specifically looking for a sophomore or a junior student to join their firm as an intern, then probably that's not the right position for you. But if they're looking for full-time, then any master's student or undergraduate student, they have equal opportunity to apply.
And I will add too, there was a recent survey done by GMAC. I believe it was in 2017, maybe 2018. They surveyed employers who said that that they would actually be starting to shift their focus. Actually, about 60% of employers are saying that when hiring analysts, they will start to shift their focus to master's degree holders. So that's good news for our MSBA students. Seeing that employers are valuing that higher level degree a little bit more too. All right, so let's shift focus a little bit here. So any interesting extracurricular activities?
I was going to say. I can talk.
So I'm in 3 extracurricular activities. I actually joined the undergraduate sports business analytics club. We did broom ball, which none of us had played before in the fall, and now we have an intramural basketball team. So just because you're in like a master's degree program doesn't mean that you don't have kind of the same opportunities to participate in extracurriculars as any normal kind of undergrad or graduate student would at other programs. There's tons of awesome opportunities if you want to get involved with that here.
Yeah, so at Notre Dame and Mendoza, you have the choice to join different kinds of clubs. So we have marketing club, BA club, technology club, investment banking club. So those clubs, they hold a variety of different workshops, guest events, and they have different tracks to New York City, to California. So if you are interested in those clubs, you can definitely join one of them or as many as you want at the beginning of the semester. So that's one thing I really like Mendoza is because the clubs.
Yeah, I think my favorite thing personally is Gabby and I both tutor on Friday mornings at a local elementary school with other MBA students and then some students from the psychology department. And I think that's my favorite part of the week is to go in and see kids and kind of have fun and just get to hang out with, kids and other students at Notre Dame. So that's been one of my favorite things to do.
All right, so some concern in the crowd about job opportunities for international students. So for anyone who's just joined us late, can I have a couple of you address that a little bit more?
For international students?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have told that it is not easy for international students to land a job here, but as a Notre Dame student, you have the necessary resources that can definitely help you to get to the alumni network, to go to different kinds of career fairs and career connects at Notre Dame, and also because our academic director Scott Nassler, I think he's a board member of an organization called Informs. Mm-hmm. So during last fall break, a lot of my classmates, a lot of international students, we went to Seattle for a conference, and then there was a career fair, a super big career fair, and a lot of us, we got job interviews there. So some of us, we interviewed with T-Mobile, Walmart Lab, Lyft, and FedEx. So that was a pretty great opportunity. And I think in April, there is another Informs conference with the Korea Fair in Denver. So I think a lot of us will go for that conference again. So just trying to land a job here.
And at the Informs at April, I think our director, Scott, he would deliver 2 speeches on that conference. Yeah. And I think he's also the chair of that conference.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. All right. So is anyone here taking Six Sigma?
Yeah, so
Excellent.
I haven't taken it yet. I'm currently enrolled. We're about 2 weeks in. And it's really cool because it basically teaches us the process of improving certain processes within business operations. And the reason why I really like this class is because at the beginning of the semester, we get put in teams of about 5 students, and we actually work with certain communities in South Bend as well as operations within Notre Dame to improve their business operations. So for example, my team is working with the city of South Bend to basically determine a better way to allocate all of their title funds. And it's really cool because you get to work on real projects and actually have a real impact on a lot of the organizations that you work with.
All right. So if you guys could do it all over again, what would you do differently?
I think I would take advantage of the ability to do more projects outside of class. The first semester, I was definitely focused more on making sure that I was getting my work done and making sure that I was doing it the way that I felt was needed to be done. And I didn't necessarily take the opportunity to apply that as much outside of the classroom as I would have liked to. So I definitely think that going back, I would have liked to kind of pursue things that I was more interested in by utilizing the stuff I had learned in class outside of class as well, which a lot of students have done. It's just one of those things that I wish I would have done more of in the first semester.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I mean, just following up on what Emma said, I feel similarly about that. I think that coming from the undergrad mindset that I was coming from, you're kind of taught, at least kind of from in American schools, that you're kind of pursuing the highest grade humanly possible. And some of the best advice that we got the first day of grad school from, at least for me, like probably one of the best teachers I've had, was that you should worry a lot less about your grades once you get to grad school, because once you get to this level, it's a lot more about kind of pursuing the skills that are going to make you great in your career. And so in terms of what Emma said, I mean, I spent probably my first part of my first module like really grade focused, like I was an undergrad or in high school sort of thing. And just worried about, can I excel in every single class humanly possible and maximize my output that way, when I wish I had spent like maybe a little bit more time just working on projects on the things that I personally am super interested in and have become more interested in since the program began. And I think that that's part of what makes this program unique and special, but also something I wish that kind of I could go back and tell myself to do from September.
Okay, so someone's asking to share more about your favorite professors at Mendoza.
So I had a really interesting experience with one of my professors. We were using a software for one of our classes in predictive analytics, and my computer was not working. The software wasn't pulling up the correct way. I could still open it, but it wasn't going the right way. And I went in to talk to one of my professors, and he was like, okay, let me see if I can figure it out. So he sat there, he looked at my computer, we went to the IT department, we couldn't figure out what was going on. We took 6 weeks to figure out what was wrong with my computer. But he was still thoroughly invested in making sure that I fixed my computer. And so he just came up to me one day after the end of class, and he's like, hey, Emma, I think I figured it out. So he sat there for 5 minutes, he fixed a couple of things on my computers, and the software worked. So one of those things, just to have a professor who's that dedicated to making sure that you're able to succeed and to making sure that you have the best resources and tools available to you, was such a cool thing for me. And the fact that he still was working on it 6 weeks later, like he was still that concerned and, just really wanting to make sure that I was set up to succeed.
Anyone else?
This is an easy one. I mean, yeah, this is an easy one. We've had so many good professors. I mean, just kind of talking about one in particular, he's the professor we've actually had the most classes with so far. So we've had one professor that's actually been with us through all 3 mods so far in our program. And I think part of what has been like really enjoyable about that kind of student-teacher relationship is just the ease with which he communicates with us. It's so not the typical like kind of being uncomfortable when you email a professor about a project or something you're working on or a question. It's very just open, and he gives you kind of a sense of confidence that no question that you could ask isn't worth answering and tending to and learning more about. And then, the way that he kind of makes himself available during office hours, really from like the time that he's in his office in the morning until he leaves the building at the very end of the day. Like at any point in time, you can go in, you can work on a class project with him, you can work on an out of class project with him, which I know that kind of at least a couple of us and a lot of other kids in our cohort have really taken advantage of and started to do their own stuff with. And then stuff from other classes that might be confusing them, just kind of like the ease of being able to communicate with a professor like that, who's also just on a really, really high level with this stuff, like an extraordinarily in tune with kind of everything that's modern about it and kind of up to date with it, has definitely been something that, as Gabby said earlier, I wasn't used to. It's incredibly like impressive, and it's really cool to be a student and be a part of that.
All right, so I'm going to combine these next two questions. So how challenging are the courses? Are they taught with the assumption that students have prior coding experience? And what are some basics that you feel that incoming students should be strong in when starting the program?
I think, something that students usually get worried about is that they have to have prior coding experience. I went into Mendoza and, I had a little bit of coding experience, but by the time I stepped into Notre Dame in Mendoza, I had completely forgotten about it. So everything here is taught with the assumption that most of these students, if not all of them, don't have that much coding experience. And it definitely makes it easier if it's not necessarily a technical skill, but more of a learning skill, just to understand the logic behind the different programming languages and understanding how these different languages work, how the different functions work. And even though a lot of students don't really have a lot of experience with coding, it's taught in a way that would make you understand the logic or help you see the logic behind these things and in real life situations. So it gives you a really good foundation for you to use if you want to take that experience and that learning further for whatever kind of project you would want to undertake in the future.
All right, what advice would you like to give for any of these students who might be joining us next year?
I would say dive in head first and just get involved. I think one of the really cool things about being here is there's so many things to do. There's such a community here. And then you also get to meet incredible people that are in your cohort as well. And so just to be able to develop those relationships and make sure you kind of get involved outside of school. Because yes, the school is amazing and the courses are fantastic, but also, you're here with all these incredible other people. And so just to be able to kind of bounce ideas off of them, develop friendships, and then kind of figure out where you're going to go from there. So I definitely think that would be mine.
I would say don't be afraid to ask questions. A lot of the times, I think that early in the program, people could be nervous that you're asking one question in a class of, our cohort of 35 and maybe that might slow down the process, when the reality is that if you have a question, there's probably 10 to 15 other people that have the same question, and the professors will take the time to answer it, and it'll make everyone in the program better. So kind of in line with what Emma said, but just don't be afraid to speak up and kind of take the stand with that.
Okay, so another person is asking, what led you to choose a program in business analytics versus something more technical like data science? Or maybe none of you were thinking about pursuing a data science.
I think for me, just the idea that you could be using data to solve a business problem was really interesting to me, just because a lot of times, even when you think about nonprofits or communities or school corporations or something like that, where necessarily it is a business, but it kind of needs, it's got a little bit of a unique perspective. So I think having the business aspect in there for me made it really interesting in the fact that I could help, a process or help how a business, get to their objectives and make sure that they're operating at a better efficiency or something like that. So just having that business aspect was a little bit more interesting for me especially coming from a business undergrad as well.
All right, so I think this question is for Brett. How did you manage your courses with the extracurriculars?
I can't. Oh, sorry. Oh, well, I mean, it's not, the extracurriculars are not, they're not rigorous. Like, they're, most of your time is going to be spent with like your course load and also like the networking that you're doing and the projects you're doing outside. A lot of the extracurriculars are just like fun things we do on the side. Like I like going to the sports analytics club because they have great speakers that come in usually once every month or so, and kind of being in like a group of people that have similar career interests as you. Since my kind of choice of profession might be a little bit more like niche than a lot of the kids in our cohort, but ultimately they don't intercept each other at any point. It's really like you're focused mostly on your course load, your networking, your projects, and then like it's stuff that you can do just because you're here at Notre Dame and you're kind of, as Wei pointed out earlier, like you really want to become part of like the Notre Dame community. I know a big thing at the beginning of the program is a lot of the students hadn't been to an American football game. And that was like a big deal for us. We all hung out. We went to, I wouldn't necessarily call that so much as an extracurricular activity as just more of like things that you get to do while you're here that you'll remember like well after the program ends type thing.
And specifically regarding like intramurals and clubs, the timing is, it works out fine with everything because intramurals typically are later in the night. So usually you're done with class and you're kind of just coming back for those. With clubs, especially a lot of the graduate business clubs, they are specifically in our lunch hour. So we don't have classes during that time period. So you have the ability to go to club meetings and that kind of things. And usually those are like meeting times are usually specifically on that hour, or there's something on a Friday. And so Fridays are free for us for the most part.
Okay, so another question. What was the toughest module so far?
Two. I agree on two.
Yeah.
Unanimously two.
Yeah.
Okay. Want to fill that out quickly for us? Why is two tough?
Two largely builds on one, kind of speaking to what Joe said earlier. One is a lot of our like introductory stuff for like, that's kind of our first stab at SQL at R, and at a couple other like at SAS Enterprise Minor. And then a lot of Mod 2 is building on like those foundations. So Mod 2 for us was machine learning. And once you're in Mod 2, there's kind of a baseline R knowledge that's expected from Mod 1. You already know how to wrangle data. You already know kind of like the foundations of manipulating it into visuals. And so that's when they really start like pushing you to become like really, really good at this stuff. Whereas Mod 1 kind of builds on that, and Mod 3 is more project-based.
Okay. All right, so next question is related to capstones. So what kind of capstone projects are you all involved in now that we've started the capstone? So just maybe a couple of you.
So my group is working on looking at employee turnover data. And so just kind of analyzing that data to see what decisions could be made regarding employee turnover and how to help retain employees.
Yeah, mine is like working for a credit union to help them try to convert all of their indirect loan candidates to their co-members. And this capstone experience has already helped me in my job search process. Actually, like got an interview from a company who is also working on this type of project. So they know I'm working on this. So they gave me the interview. So I'm kind of happy about that. I got the capstone.
So we're actually working with the city of South Bend for their 311 calls. So think like anytime like a citizen has a complaint about like a pothole in the road or like a power line being down or like garbage being in the street, we actually are working with the city of South Bend to improve the process of them getting a call and actually fulfilling that request from the citizen. And so I think it's cool because we're acting as consultants of the semester, and we actually get to have a real impact on the city, which doesn't really have that much of a built out analytics practice. So again, it's really cool for us to have a direct impact on them.
All right, so I'm going to answer the next couple of questions. So how big is the MSBA cohort? And did the majority of students applying get in during early application deadlines? So currently the cohort is 35 students. Next year, we are projected to have 2 cohorts of 40. So total of 80 seats in the program. And I will say we get a pretty steady stream of applications throughout all of the rounds. The biggest round being round 2, which just ended on January 14th with notifications going out in March. So that's going to be our biggest round. So the bigger the round, the more admitted students in each round. It's not necessarily a situation where we only admit a certain number from each round because we do look at the qualifications for each individual applicant and student. We do recommend that the international applicants apply no later than the, we say February 15th, but I'm happy if you get your application in by the March 17th deadline, so we have plenty of time to process I-20 documents for you. But again, majority of students are applying right in the middle in round 2. And so next question related to admission, do you have to send official GRE and IELTS scores along with the application, or can you send official scores once admission is confirmed? Okay, so we do need scores in order to read your application. You don't have to send your official scores. You can send your unofficial score report to complete your application. And if you are admitted and do enroll in the program, then you would need to send your official score report. And can the GRE be waived? Unfortunately, no. We do require a GRE or a GMAT for any applicant applying to this program. All right, so how has it been adjusting socially to Notre Dame and the community, especially since it's a short program?
I think it's been really, really cool to see how everybody kind of gets along outside of class. There are socials and things like that that do get put on through either GBP, or we kind of just decide like, hey, let's go do something all together. We do like burger night, or we go out. There's an arcade place over here that we went to last week. So it is very much like we do really decide to kind of get together outside of class, and it also could be through your extracurriculars because we do a lot of intramural teams as well.
Anyone else? Gabby, you want to weigh in? Put you on the spot.
Okay. I guess this is pretty good, especially as an international student. This is my first time being in an actual international educational institution, I guess. And it's been a really good experience, especially since Notre Dame is a really big community. But even though it's a huge community, there's always a place for you to find something that you're interested in doing, people that you get along with, people that you can have a good conversation with about anything. And the fact that the program is very diverse in terms of the types of people that come in, the backgrounds that everyone has, the interests that everyone has. It's been good to fill in your different interests, to find people that you like hanging out with, like having conversations about maybe something for school or in life or anything under the sun. It's been pretty good, and it's I wouldn't say that it's something that people should necessarily worry about.
Thank you. I did have a question submitted in the chat feature. Please remember to submit your questions to the Q&A function. But we did have a question about applicants having prior work experience. So I will say that this program is designed for candidates with 2 years or less work experience. Although I will say that we do have a handful of students in the program currently with work experience, and their average amount of work experience is about 33 months out of those handful of students. So it is possible to be admitted to the program and have some work experience, and it is valued because you have a little bit more experience to share with your peers who haven't been out in a professional setting yet. Another very quick admissions question. Are applications reviewed on a rolling basis? No. Applications are reviewed by rounds. So let's say you applied in the round 2, which was January 14th deadline. You'll receive your decision on March. I can't remember the exact date, but in March, mid-March. So the way that applications are reviewed, they're reviewed, sort of everyone in a round is reviewed at the same time. All decisions are released on the same date. So no, not rolling. So you could apply before the deadline, you're still going to hear on the notification date. You could apply on the deadline, you're still going to hear back on that notification date. I don't recommend applying at 11:55 p.m. on the deadline date because ultimately you will have questions or problems or concerns and I will be asleep and can't answer those questions. So I recommend at least applying just a couple of days before that deadline so that I can help you. And I do monitor those emails very closely because if it was me, I would be stressed and panicked if I had a question at the very bitter end of that round. And I don't want any of you to be in that position. So give yourself a couple extra days just so we can iron out any rough spots in the application process. Okay, anyone here who has selected sports analytics as their elective?
That's pretty much all of us, right?
All of you? Okay.
No,
No? Who wants to talk about sports analytics?
I haven't taken it. I'll talk about it.
Oh, okay, so we haven't taken it yet.
It's mod 4.
Oh,
Well,
Yeah.
timing's a little off.
But
You get to know anything about it.
We're all super excited about it. So yeah, I'm very excited about it.
let's talk about the guy who teaches it.
Go for
The
it.
guy who's the kind of the leader of our program, I would say, right?
Yeah.
So the guy who kind of runs our entire cohort is actually the professor for that specific class and has tons of kind of contacts in that industry and also helps run the undergraduate club that I'm in. So I think part of the excitement of taking it for most of us is that he's really in tune with it. And the class will probably be, if you're interested in that sort of thing, super fun. I know I'm super excited about it. And most of the people that picked it for elective are super excited about it.
Yeah, if any of you have joined me for one of our program overview webinars with Dr. Scott Nestler, you've seen him in those webinars. He is the professor that Brett is referring to. So he absolutely loves sports analytics. He's a season ticket holder for several sports here, knows all the coaches here, very big into sports. So you can't ask for a better professor for that class. All right, so I have one more question and our time is actually up. Oh. 2 more questions. So I'm actually going to cut it off with these 2 questions. 3 questions. All right, 3 questions. No more questions because I got to get these guys home so they can do homework. Very quick, average GRE score. So first I'll say we don't have a minimum because we're looking holistically at all of your credentials in your application. But our middle 80% range for GRE scores for this particular cohort was 310 to 326. So if you're falling in that middle range, you would be considered a stronger applicant than others who would be below that range. Okay. Financial analytics, financial optimization, any coursework like that?
So I don't think we actually have any classes on financial analytics, but that doesn't really stop anyone from working on a project that's related to finance analytics. For example, for one of my projects, I'm actually analyzing the contents of Donald Trump's Twitter account and correlating it to the S&P 500. And so it's really incumbent on the student to take upon those projects upon themselves. But again, it's like just because we don't have classes in that doesn't mean you can't work on projects like that.
And I do know that one of the students in our program got permission to take I believe it was some sort of finance investment class that I think he's taking as well. So again, you can kind of tailor your classes if you get permission from.
Building on what Joe said, a lot of people in Mod 2, we take a course called Advanced Statistical Inference, and that final is very kind of choose your own path. So everyone presents kind of on a subject that was extremely interesting to them. And I know that a lot of kids that are kind of interested in investing or that scope of, I think that's where your project actually started, right? A lot of the students that are interested in that kind of area, they kind of craft their project around that sort of topic because the professor will help you with whatever like your project is about. And that's kind of where you can get some of that experience, kind of building models on your own or testing things out on your own, web scraping, whatever it is that you're trying to do.
If you're interested in quant finance, you have the ability to take the projects on that will impress the interviewers that work in quant finance.
All right, so our last question, and actually this is a great one to close out with. So what do you guys feel gives you an edge over students from other universities in terms of the curriculum, electives, and job opportunities?
All right. Well, I can only speak from my perspective, but as someone who kind of, as Gabby said earlier, I came into the program with basically like the baseline of not having learned any of this stuff. So I think the edge for me is that the course was really, or the courses and the program overall was really catered towards someone like me. I didn't have kind of professional, like full-time experience. I had just had internships. I really, really wanted this complement to my education that would kind of help further my career. And so I would just say that the edge is that the program is really catered towards students like that. They're really actually going to teach you the material and you're going to learn it and you're going to get kind of the full grasp of the education. You're never going to feel like you're starting from behind the pack. You're not going to feel like the courses are overwhelming you because they're taught from the perspective that, hey, like Mendoza is going to educate you on all of these subjects so that when you leave the program, like you have that education as your baseline. So I would just say that I thought that was a huge advantage compared to a lot of the other programs that I had looked at and interviewed for and thought about going to.
One more?
I think for me personally, just having the brand recognition of Notre Dame behind me is very, very encouraging just because, you know, Notre Dame is very well known and it does have a very like high, you know, kind of rigorous standing. And so I think being able to say that I, you know, went through this program and not only is Notre Dame fantastic, but the program itself, like Brett had talked about, is very, very encouraging. You do learn quite a lot of different coding aspects and that kind of thing. And so being able to have those kind of like skills that are able to be transferred between jobs is really cool as well. I know personally that I've had people ask me like, how comfortable are you with Python? How comfortable are you with Excel? And having those Python courses, and like we have an Excel BBA course, for instance, just being able to talk about that in a way that explains like, yes, I am still kind of learning it, but I do have this really great foundation that comes from being here.
Yeah, just one quick add-on. So every time I went to Chicago, I saw more people wear Notre Dame gear than Chicago gear. So Notre Dame is everywhere in Chicago, and yeah, it's a strong brand.
All right, and I just want to thank our very last question that popped up at the last minute. Thank you for reminding me that there was an application fee waiver code that was promised to all of you. So I did type it in the chat feature. So go ahead and view that there. Make sure you copy that down for your application. I hope to see some applications come through after this. But I want to thank everyone for joining us this evening. Thank you for putting up with our very interesting camera filters tonight. And thank you for all of these amazing questions as well. And I hope that you all will join us for the next webinar coming up. Everyone have a great evening, a great day, and we'll be in touch soon. Thank you. Bye-bye. There we go.